Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to those who are already in the chat. The usual suspects, Maddie, Norman, and Brandon, already discussing Star Trek Picard while they were waiting for me to arrive. Sorry, I'm a little bit late this month. I had to do a couple things before I came on live, and I was running a little bit behind. But I am here and now. Good to see you three in the chat. And welcome to anyone who happens to be watching this in the archives. So, once again, I am in my wine cellar. Green screen, excuse me. This month's wine is, of course, a red wine. It is a Portuguese red blend, a cheap Costco wine, but it's not bad, and it's a pretty bottle. So you know how I like my pretty bottles. So no, I am not actually Portuguese myself. My name, my screen name this month comes as usual from the wine that I happen to be drinking, which this month is a red blend from Portugal. Let me take a sip. I'll wait for you guys to say hello, and you're in the middle of your Picard discussion. See that you guys are talking about the intro of Star Trek Picard and how it doesn't say in the 25th century in the opening credit or the opening sequence in England, apparently, which is interesting. I hope you guys are seeing me. No one is acknowledging me yet, so I'm gonna just go over to the YouTubes and make sure that I am there. Weird things happen sometimes, so I get a little worried that YouTube is being weird. So give me a second. I'm just gonna go check in on that. Yeah, looks like I'm there. All right. Okay. Oh, I see that Maddie is saying both. All three of them are now saying that they can see me. Okay, just checking because you know how weird shit happens on these live streams. All right. So I see you guys have already been talking about Star Trek Picard, but I actually wasn't going to lead with that. Yeah, I'm still trapped in the Chateau Picard wine cellar. Yes, I am. I'm not trapped. I'm enjoying myself. Look at all that wine I have to drink. With all that wine, you would think I would do better than a wine from Costco. But here we are. So I wasn't planning to lead with Picard. I was going to lead with Antman and the Wasp Quantmania. Get that out of the way. I know the three of you aren't necessarily Marvel people. I don't remember. Maybe Norman is. I don't remember. I'm going to do it spoiler free. And other people who will watch this are into Marvel. And I don't think I'm going to do a review for it separately. I had said before that I was going to not do reviews for every Marvel project anymore, but that I would probably still do one for Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantmania when it came out. But actually, no. I don't really particularly want to. So, and besides that, those Marvel reviews I do get like 20 views. And these live chats get a lot more than that, usually at least 60 views. So it's like 3 times the views. So I'll have 3 times the number of people watching my Ant-Man and Wasp Quantmania review if I just do it here rather than taking all the time to do a whole separate review. Yes, Brandon, you are marvelous. Well, so you guys just bear with me. I see you guys aren't, you're not all into Marvel. Bear with me because I do want to talk about it, and I'll do it in a spoiler-free way, and then we can get into Picard. And then I've got other things I want to talk about. I want to give you an update on how I feel about The Last of Us as well, since I talked about that last month. So It got a lot of bad reviews. It had a rotten score going into the film, like before it was released. It's only the second Marvel film to get a rotten score from the critics, and I think the first one must have been the Eternals, although I'm a little surprised that Thor: Love and Thunder didn't also get one, because people like to bash that one as well. But I went in with an open mind. And of course, as usual, as with all of the Phase 4 and now Phase 5 Marvel projects, I don't think they're terrible the way that some other people do. I think that they're average. I think that they're mediocre. And this falls right in line with that. It's not terrible. It's not the worst thing ever. It doesn't deserve a rotten score, but it's not great either. It's mediocre. And now the most common complaint that I heard going into the film, I kind of agree with mostly. I had heard that it was a film that didn't stand out on its own, per se, that it just was dependent on the fact that it's set up for all these other films. Like one critic said, yeah, all it does is set up like 12 other movies, but it doesn't stand on its own. And I took that to mean that it didn't stand as an independent film on its own. It was dependent on being surrounded by other films and setting up future films, and it didn't have its own beginning, middle, end, its own character arcs, its own story to tell. And that I do disagree with, because I think it does have it's its own movie. It has its own story. It has its own characters, its own character arcs. But I guess my opinion is just a slight alteration of that. I wouldn't say that it doesn't stand on its own as its own film. I would just say that its own film that it is far less interesting than the parts of the film that do set up for future projects. The most interesting parts of this movie are the parts that relate to future MCU projects. The best part of this movie, the best aspect of this movie, is by far Jonathan Majors as Kang the Conqueror, and I heard that across the board from almost all the reviews, saying they love Jonathan Majors. He's great in this film. But that's the best part of the film, and it is. And Jonathan Majors' existence, Kang's existence in this film, is purely to set up for him being the major villain moving forward in the MCU, and that's the whole reason he is there. So, and that's the best part of the film. And the best scenes in the film, my favorite scenes in this film, are the post-credit scenes, and those post-credit scenes exist purely to set up for future films. And those are my favorite scenes in the movie. So my favorite scenes in the movie are the ones that are setting up for the future films. That's not good. So the movie itself, yes, it does have its own story, it has its own character arc, its own beginning, middle, end, but that all of that is uninteresting. And I think it's a mistake to take Ant-Man out of his normal environment and put him in this fantastical realm. Now, usually, as I said last month, I usually like fantasy movies more than like the science fiction-y type stuff. I feel like the first two Ant-Man films were more like Earth-based science fiction. All of the things in it were based on, science. I mean, not real science, but like pseudoscience. But they were scientifically based and anchored a little bit of reality and taking place in the everyday world in the city. And this time we go into this fantastical world of the quantum realm, which visually, there's another part of the film that's really good. Visually, it's fantastic. It's beautiful. It's amazing. So all that is good. But I think Ant-Man is not a character that fits well in that environment, and his story did not fit well in that environment. And they lost one of the best parts of the movie I forget that character's name. The dude always told all those stories in a really roundabout way. He isn't in it. I think the film loses something from his absence, and it kind of loses that charm that the first two Ant-Man movies had. Like, there's just certain kind of humor and charm that those had. It doesn't lose all the charm because Paul Rudd himself is just charming automatically. So he'll bring a certain amount of charm to any movie. But setting it in this fantastical environment and taking away some of the funnier characters, they kind of lose some of the charm, and the humor is not as good. It's not terrible, although there is one part at the toward the end of the movie, and for those who've seen it, I'll just say Mordok and the line, "I'm not a dick." If you know, you know. That's dumb. That was actively unfunny that irritated me. So I thought that was so stupid. So, um, the humor throughout most of the film is not terrible like that, but it's just not as good. And Ant-Man is just kind of lost some of the charm that it had in the previous two films. So I think it was a mistake to put him in this fantastical environment. Um, and then his story arc is just a very, very standard, stereotypical father-daughter relationship, father-daughter, conflict, and they come together in the end. Like, it was very uninteresting. So the Ant-Man story, very uninteresting, lacking the charm from the previous two films. Jonathan Majors, great part of the film. But again, his only purpose is to set up for future movies. So I'm most excited about the post-credit scenes and how they have set up for future projects in the MCU. And that is what I'm most excited about. And that's the best part of the movie, which makes it not a great movie on its own. It's still not bad. It's not terrible. It's not a rotten film, whatever. I would give it a 7. If I were going to do a review, I would say at the end, my rating for Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantmania out of 10 is a 7. And then a little 7 would appear next to my head, which is a lower score than I gave Thor: Love and Thunder, which got trashed a lot. Thor: Love and Thunder, for how ridiculous and over the top it would get, had some heart, had more heart than Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantmania, in my opinion. It was more genuine, heartfelt, whereas this was kind of a little contrived, heartfelt scenes. Ant-Man and the Wasp themselves have a heartfelt moment at the end of this film that was completely unearned because they were completely separated from each other for like 90% of the film. And so we're supposed to base this off of previous films, not this film. We're like, oh yeah, they've established this relationship in the last movie and in maybe a little bit in Endgame. I don't remember if they were together in Endgame a whole lot, but mostly in the last Ant-Man movie, they established this relationship. So this little heartfelt scene they had at the end felt unearned to me because that is a remnant of the previous movie, not this movie. So it just, Thor: Love and Thunder had more heart, as ridiculous as some of the stuff was. And I would compare the Mordok scene at the end to the Zeus scene in Thor: Love and Thunder as far as how much I hate it. Now, granted, the Zeus scene does go on for longer than the Mordok scene at the end, but I hate them equally. So I give Thor: Love and Thunder and what's the other one? Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. I gave an 8 as well. So both of those I do have ranked above Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, which is disappointing because I had high hopes for it. But the aspect of it that I had high hopes for was good. That's just the Kang part of it and setting up for the multiversal saga and all that. But it kind of makes me really look forward to Loki season 2. In fact, Jessie Gender, at the start of her review for this film, she comes on and she goes, one thing I can say about this movie, it gets me really excited for Loki season 2. And I'm kind of in the same boat. I kind of agree with that. I feel the same way. It gets me really excited for Loki season 2. All right, guys, thanks for bearing with me, you guys in the chat. I know this is not your forte. Hopefully people who have watched this in the archives got some enjoyment out of that, or at least got something out of that. Because I don't think I'm going to do a separate review. Maddie says, I did see Loki season 1. That was fun, even for someone who doesn't really know Marvel like me. Cool. So Kang, the villain in this film, is a multiversal variant of He Who Remains, who appeared at the end of Loki season 1. And every indication is another variant of Kang will appear in Loki season 2. And I'm really looking forward to it. And yeah, the best parts of this film are the parts that kind of relate to what's coming in Loki season 2. So I think Jessie Gender, although I don't always agree with everything she says, so I think she hit it on the head. Yeah, this really makes me excited for Loki season 2. High Hopes. The song High Hopes. I don't know that one. Or I probably do. I just don't know by title. I bet you if I heard it, I would know it. Who's it by? Okay. We can now get on to what you guys' favorite part of the show is. We can talk about Star Trek Picard Season 3. I did already do a review, but I would love to get some of your guys' thoughts. I kind of saw a little bit of what you guys were talking about earlier. Have you all seen it? Did I hear Brandon? Oh, you have Brandon. You haven't seen it yet. I would be very curious to hear what you think, Brandon. What did you guys think? Okay, Brandon, if you can find it on YouTube, send me a link later. If you can figure out who sang it, because I'm just curious. Likely it's a song that I've heard before. I just don't know it by title. Oh, you have seen it twice? I thought you said you get it later than us, but you have seen it. The premiere we're talking about, Season 3 premiere. And Manny, I know you saw it. You were the one who said that they didn't do the 25th century thing in the beginning. All right, let me drink some wine a little bit and we can discuss a little bit. So Manny gave it a 7. Norman gave it a 6.5. Mainly to be cautious because I felt burned before. Totally understand. Manny also mentioned good, but I felt the same about Season 2, Episode 1. I hope it stays good. Yeah. I'm on the same boat as you guys. I went ahead and gave it a 9 because I felt it was a very effective finale premiere and did everything a premiere should do. Even though I do think we've just watched half of the premiere because I think Episode 2 is kind of like the second half of the premiere. I gave it a 9 for those reasons, but I did say that it is a tenuous 9. It is a 9 that can go down in the context of the rest of the season. I thought the premiere of Season 2 in an entity of itself, when it aired and nothing else had aired after it, was solid. I believe I gave it an 8. And then Episode 2, I thought, yeah, it's okay. It's fine. I didn't think it sucked yet. I didn't love that they were doing a Mirror Universe ripoff, but whatever. Okay, I'm not off the train yet with it. But then by the time Episode 10 aired, both of those episodes suck now. Both of them are terrible. I put Episode 2 as, I believe, my number 2 on my worst parallel universe alternate timeline list because it is just a ripoff of the Mirror Universe, and in context with the rest of the season, it's terrible. And the same with Episode 1 of last season. You put it in context, it's terrible. So I reserve the right to greatly reduce that 9. It could go down as far as a 1 if the whole season is terrible. So it's a tenuous 9. All I'm doing is looking at the hour of television I watched just by itself, not passing judgment based on anything that's happened in the past, not passing judgment based on what I think is going to happen in the future. I don't know what's going to happen in this show. So I'm just looking at it as this episode. So let's see. Oh, I see, Brandon. It drops the next day, but you have seen it. Okay. Manny said, I did notice the Voyager B. I think that's foreshadowing 7's Captain C. That's the ship she should have. Oh, I didn't notice that. That's cool. Yeah. I'm suspending disbelief about 7 being a first officer, but that's whatever. I don't care. This is the franchise that had Kirk go from ensign to captain and Tilly go from ensign to first officer. I mean, whatever. So I liked the pun there, Brandon. The Confederation and shit. We were conned something awful. Good pun. Good pun. Okay. I don't understand why people like the Titan captain. I thought his rigidity and especially his assholeness were over the top. Mark actually hated the Titan captain. I am reserving judgment. So far, he does seem like the stereotypical asshole captain who's going to be adversarial and who's going to possibly chase Picard and Riker down and going, "You're breaking the rules. I'm going to get you," or whatever. But I'll wait and see. Again, I don't always agree with Jessie Gender, but she's seen the first 6 episodes and she said that she really found his arc interesting. And I don't always agree with her, but I would assume that if his arc was just simply the stereotypical adversarial captain, that she would not say she finds it interesting. So I am just going to wait and see on what they do with this character before I pass judgment. But he definitely, red flags were definitely raised that he seems like he could be just the stereotypical asshole adversarial captain, which is on the same lines as the asshole adversarial admiral. There's really no difference. I feel the same way about each of those archetypes, but I'm going to wait and see if that is what they're doing with this character. Jessie Ginger said she thought his arc was interesting, so let me see what she's talking about. So yeah, I kind of wanted to. Yeah, did you guys? I'm just assuming you saw my brother's review. He really trashed it, and I don't blame him. I think he definitely has a lot of really bad feelings from season 2. But I do think he was being unfair. I think he was not allowing it a chance to breathe on its own, prejudging it maybe a little bit. That's my opinion. I like he said that it was ridiculous that Dr. Crusher all of a sudden is this badass fighter and is shooting. We haven't seen her in 20 years. We don't know what happened to her. She's been cut off with the rest of the crew. Her circumstances may have forced her to learn to be a badass fighter. We don't fucking know. People change a lot in 20 years. I think about myself 20 years ago, and transition aside, I'm a completely different person. Even if I hadn't transitioned, I'm a completely different person in 20 years. So I need to wait and see what their explanation is, how they're going to do the retroactive character development, how she went from what we last saw in Nemesis, or barely saw in Nemesis, or last saw in All Good Things, really. It was the last time she had any kind of role in any Star Trek project. Compared to where she is now, if there's a good retroactive character development that explains how she got from point A to point B, I will buy it because it's 20 years. So I'm not ready to say, oh, that's dumb that she's shooting people, acting like a badass action hero, because I don't fucking know. I need to see. So that's why I feel like, I don't know, it's like, to me, he's being a little bit harsh and jumping to conclusions, but fully understand why he would, or not just him, but anyone else who feels that way totally would understand because of how awful Picard season 2 was. I'm taking a different approach. I'm just looking at it just as an entity by itself and giving it the benefit of a doubt. Terry Metalis was not involved in most of season 2. He was only involved in the first couple episodes, which in and of themselves weren't terrible. So let's give it a shot. Let's see how it turns out. And that's my philosophy, before jumping to conclusion. Now, if it turns out they don't give any real character development for Dr. Crusher, and it is dumb that she just suddenly is an action hero, then I will concur with my brother. But I just need to wait and see first. I'm not ready to jump to that conclusion. And again, I'm not blaming him for reacting that way. It's totally understandable. I just have a different view on it. Let's see. Let me going back up again. Let me take a sip of wine while I peruse the chat. Okay, we're not clear on how much time has passed, but I assume she's been fast-tracked through the academy. Yeah, she must have been. Janeway probably pulled some strings, used some of her actual time that she spent serving on a Federation starship unofficially to kind of help fast-track her through the academy and up the ranks. So whatever, we can I still have to suspend a little bit of disbelief for it, but that's fine. I can do it. Manny says Dr. Crusher's son. I don't think it's Picard's son, even if he has an accent. I think that's a red herring. I kind of hope so. I don't want it to be Picard's son. I just think that's really cliche, and then we're getting into Star Trek II territory. Which, by the way, that's another thing where I saw things differently from my brother, because he said that this film really reminded him of Nemesis. And he didn't understand why people liked it because everyone hates Nemesis. I didn't think Nemesis at all. Didn't cross my mind even remotely. I was definitely getting Star Trek II vibes. Now, to be fair, Nemesis is definitely ripping off Star Trek II, so I can see the connection there. But I was feeling like they're going for the Star Trek II vibes. And really, in general, more of the original series films. That's what I felt like. And my brother thought they were really recreating the vibe of the Next Generation films, which is understandable since it has Next Generation characters in it. But to me, it seemed like they were going for the original trilogy films. Original trilogy, that's Star Wars. The original series films. That's what they were going for. And so far, it is working for me. So far. But so far are the operative words there. We'll see moving forward if that continues. But that's just the vibe I get, and that's just a matter of a different perspective. He saw it differently, but he was wondering, like, why do people like this when it's so much like Nemesis? It's because no one else sees it like Nemesis, and that's not saying he's right or wrong. It's just saying it's just about different perspectives, and that was not my perspective on it at all. I didn't see Nemesis at all, but that is not to put down his perspective, because everyone's perspective is legit. Humble pie. Oh, what was the Titan Captain eating? Humble pie. Hopefully by the end of season 3. Norman, as I've joked elsewhere, Jack Crusher is probably the son of a certain candle ghost. Let's see. Norman has to leave in a couple minutes. We'll be back. He wrote that a couple minutes ago, so he's probably gone. Okay, well, I'll see you when you get back, Norman. Alyssa Jane, you can remember 20 years ago? Cool. Let's see. Yeah, I had to think about it. 20 years ago would have been 2003. Honestly, 2003 to me seems like 5 years ago. Like, I can't fucking believe it's been 20 years since 2003. That's insane. That is insane. 2003 was 20 years ago. Just the words coming out of my mouth. That is insane. But yeah, I very clearly remember 2003. Enterprise was still on the air. I was I had just moved to Western Massachusetts. Yeah, I remember 2003. Okay, at least they gave Seven a Starfleet uniform, only 25 years too late. Yeah, because she's now officially in Starfleet, whereas she wasn't before. I still don't understand why T'Pol doesn't get a Starfleet uniform in season 4 of Enterprise, but that's a whole other thing, because she was now officially in Starfleet, but still had to wear the tight jumpsuit. Anyways, Manny says Dr. Crusher needs to drop the "you're going to need more regulators" line. Brandon says that big ship at the end gave me Nemesis vibes. Okay, fair. Let's see. 20 years ago, I was watching Enterprise season 3. Absolute madness. Yeah. By the way, I am almost finished my Enterprise rewatch. In fact, I have exactly 1 episode left. These are the Voyages, which I will probably watch tonight or tomorrow. And then next step is to do a live chat with Mark. I've already reached out to him. He has not responded yet, but as soon as he does, we'll get that on the books. We'll get a Enterprise discussion for whenever it is that we are both available to do it together. And then in March, we'll be good to go for my 10 least favorite Enterprise episode video and my 20 favorite Enterprise episode video. And I have not quite worked out what those are going to be yet. I still need to figure that out, but I have an idea what a lot of those are going to be on each of them. Brandon says the collars on those Starfleet uniforms must be really uncomfortable. They look tight. Are you talking about the current ones? Because we're just talking about Enterprise. So are you talking about Enterprise or Picard? Pardon me while I drink a little more wine. Would you like some wine without cheese? Didn't have any cheese this time, just wine. So, Brandon, did I see you give a rating? I think Maddie said 6.5, or one of them, Norman said 6.5 and Maddie said 7, or one or the other. Norman said 6.5, Maddie said 7. Did you want to give a rating out of 10? You're not required to. We'll just be curious. I also watched, today I watched Mark's review on Wolf and the Fold. And God, that is a terrible, terrible episode. I'd probably agree with my brother. Yeah, I'd probably agree with my brother with the 2 out of 10 on that that episode. Brandon submitted a comment which Mark read where you gave it a whopping 4 out of 10, being very generous to that episode. And I wrote a comment on Mark's video telling him that he was right about the misogyny at the beginning of the episode, but it's even more misogynistic than he even went into. And then I pointed out another really dumb part of it, because there's so much dumb part. It's so dumb. But I'm with Mark, though, in that I thought it was good when I was a kid. But I got smart and grew up and matured and gained intelligence. So I now recognize it for the awful episode that it is. That episode was the first place I ever heard of Jack the Ripper. Do you realize that? I didn't know who Jack the Ripper was until I watched that episode. I was before 10, under 10. I would have watched that when I was really young, maybe like 7 or 8 or something. And I didn't know what Jack the Ripper was. But then I learned about it from that. And yeah, I mean, to say he's some sort of alien, which as Mark pointed out, there are many different shows and films that have done that. To say that he is an alien likely undercuts the likely solution that he was just some rich dude who got away with it because of his connections, which really undercuts just how awful an aristocratic society is, not even only back then in England, but today, that wealthy people can get away with whatever the fuck they want, and the poor are thrown in jail instantly. And so we lose that story if you pass it off as him being an alien, which is ridiculous. Norman says, I'm not a fan of certain TOS episodes, and that's certainly one of them. Yeah, pretty bad. So I kind of got a little sidetracked from Picard, but you all let me know if you want to go back to Picard at any point. Yeah, Babylon 5. As I mentioned last week when I was talking about how I actually don't like science fiction, or at least space-based science fiction, never watched a single second of Babylon 5, never want to. And now I feel good about why I don't, because I just don't like that genre. But Mark did mention the Babylon 5 thing in his review. Yeah. Jack the Ripper was a crazy guy. I don't believe the conspiracy theories that he was a prince, etc. Not necessarily a prince, but the idea that he was, a rich guy who was well off and well connected and was able to hide his identity because of his connections. Knowing how the world works now and how it worked back then, totally buy that as a possibility. Totally. Not necessarily that he was a prince per se, but someone high up in society. Absolutely. I think it's very possible. Let's see. Jack the Ripper was eaten by Vestra, according to Doctor Who. So Doctor Who did a Jack the Ripper thing too. Okay. Okay. All right. What else? Anything else on Picard or Star Trek in general before I move on to the next thing? On to the next thing. He was rumored to be the elder brother of George V back in the day. So that would be the conspiracy Maddie was referring to. I think it's possible. I think it's definitely more possible than him being a fucking alien, that's for sure. Makes a hell of a lot more sense. Was Maddie, if he was just some crazy guy, how did nobody ever find him? Like, no one had any clue. It's a complete mystery. If he was just some crazy guy, I feel like he would have been discovered. So I don't know. I'm going to have to disagree with you on that. Does Picard... Any thoughts on Raffi's plot? And I'll get to Brandon's. I almost read Brandon's comment. Well, let me read Norman's first, because it was first. Any thoughts on Raffi's plot? Yeah, I'm intrigued. Want to see where they're going. I was simultaneously thankful that they didn't go the route of her having a relapse, but also a little annoyed that they gave me the misdirect. Like, fuck you. But also like, well, thank God that's not where the direction they were going in. So, like anything else in this episode, I'm in wait and see mode. I'm intrigued. The part about the building falling through the hole and then coming out on the other side and the hole in the sky was interesting. I want to see what that's all about. So seems like there could be some sort of time shenanigans, or who knows. And if they're going to do time shenanigans, hopefully it's much better than the time shenanigans in season 2. Raffi goes to Blade Runner land. I feel like we've been seeing that a lot more in Star Trek lately. Honestly, what it reminded me of is Coruscant from Star Wars, especially like how they had the vehicles flying above. It looks exactly like Coruscant to me. Brandon said, does Picard have to be so hard to see? Do you mean that visually you have a hard time seeing it, or that the time that it comes on is inconvenient or whatever? Okay. Maddie says, I'm glad Raffi isn't a drug addict. I did like when she's searching for the red lady in the screen and we both see the Enterprise F and Voyager B and she doesn't talk about it. I was like, aha. Oh, I did not notice that. I had no idea that they showed the Enterprise F and the Voyager B. Oh, Brandon says it's too dark. Oh, I didn't notice. Yeah, everything is so dark. Huh, interesting. No, I didn't even notice. It just seemed like normal to me. Interesting. I'm wondering if the Enterprise F is going to be mentioned at all. We're going to find out who the captain is, or if it's just going to kind of make little cameos like that, where you blink, if you blink, you miss it, type of thing. Which I didn't even notice it. What else, guys? I was waiting to see if Liz was going to show up this week, because I do want to talk about my writing, and Liz had an interest in that. So I'll hold off on that a little bit and see if she does pop in. And if she doesn't, I'm sure she'll watch this in the archives anyway. Let's move on to The Last of Us, because last month I had just watched the premiere and I said, I said that it had the already had the jump on the most overrated show of 2023 because I found the premiere to be extraordinarily mediocre, and then everyone was acting like it is the greatest thing they've ever seen in their lives. The latest episode was episode 5, which actually has now been more than a week since it came out because normally it comes on Sundays, but episode 5 came on a Friday, so that didn't conflict with the Super Bowl, which was on Sunday. So it's been more than a week since the latest episode came on, and that is my favorite episode. And I'm at the point now where I think it's less overrated. It's still overrated because I still don't think it's as great as people say it is, but I like it a little more now. I think I'm getting more into the character stories, and not just the overarching character stories, but the character stories of the week that they're having these, they're focusing on, especially episodes 3 and 5, focusing on and doing deep dives into characters who otherwise aren't a part of the show. And I actually, this might be a controversial statement, especially in the LGBTQ community, but I actually like episode 5 better than episode 3. Episode 3, for those of you who don't know, who don't watch the show, it has been touted as the great gay lover episode. It kind of comes out of nowhere because it features 2 characters that aren't mainstays on the show, and just focuses in on them for an episode. And the showrunner has said that he wanted to, force people to watch a gay love story, which I kind of love. I kind of love that. So that's great. And I do, I really appreciate that this show took the time to do a deep dive into a gay love story, and, it treated it like a heterosexual love story, which we don't see often enough. And by that, I mean that it has depth and that it feels real. It feels like a real relationship. And did so in the spotlight, in a show that they knew a lot of people were going to watch because it's based off of a video game. And I guess that part of it is loosely based from the game, but it's totally different. The thing about it, though, is as great as everyone says it is, and it's great that they did the gay love story. It is not perfection. Like the one video might have been Jesse Ginger's had that in the title. Perfection. It's not a masterpiece as people made it out to be. Now, to be fair, there is apparently a 2-hour director's cut. And perhaps if I watched the 2 hours director's cut, I might say it's a masterpiece and all that, because it probably cut out the parts that I needed it to be in there. Because the reason why I don't think episode 3 is a masterpiece, despite it being very important, for the LGBTQ community, I don't think it's a masterpiece or perfection because it yada yadas over really important stuff. And I'm not going to spoil it in case you haven't seen it, but there's some really crucial information that it just skips over because the episode is structured. This is not spoiling things. It covers 20 years in the single episode, so it time jumps a bunch, and it time jumps over some really important things, especially at that last time jump. I felt really jarred. It was really jarring. I was like, wait, what? What is happening now? What? So I'm sorry, I can't agree that this was perfection and all of that stuff. I think episode 3, like the show overall, is overrated. But perhaps the 2-hour director's cut fixes that because maybe they have the crucial information that should have been there. So I can't agree that it's perfection. And I think episode 5 is better because episode 5 had the same kind of heartfelt, and I don't want to say a word that will spoil it, but I'll just say heartfelt, and a character story that I really connected with, was really powerful character story, but they didn't yada yada through the important stuff. They did a very good job of storytelling. So I actually like episode 5 better than episode 3. Sorry, I know that's blasphemous for me to say as a queer person, but I did. I just think objectively it does better storytelling. Now, I'll be interested to see where the show goes forward. I still can't imagine that I'm gonna like it as much as other people do. I think this reminds me a lot of Westworld season 1. So, and so far as people are saying this is the greatest thing ever, and I think it's mediocre at best. Although now I'm starting to think it's a little bit above average. My opinion is raising of it a little bit, but it's still not as great as everybody else says it is. Maddie says, love the first game, never played the second. The story setting is so sad. I can't watch the show. It follows the game. I know where it goes. It is sad. The show is sad. Yeah, I think intentionally so. And I think, I don't want to say I like it just because it's sad, but I do like that they're able to tell powerful character stories in that way. And I don't know how sad it ultimately is going to get because I haven't played the game, but I have heard that. Maddie says there's a fun scene in the game where they are trying to explain the post-apocalyptic people. What a nice cream truck is. It's loud, colorful, and children run outside to it. It seems totally insane. I wonder if that's going to be adapted into the show or not, or if they've already skipped that part. I like to watch heavy spoilers reviews, and he likes to do side-by-side comparisons to the show and the game. So I can see sometimes like what some scenes were originally in the game. Okay. What else, guys? What else you got for me? Mandolorian is coming out soon. Speaking of Pedro Pascal, he's going to be in 2 huge hit shows at the same time. I'll tell you, when that dude first appeared as Oberyn Martell on Game of Thrones, I never predicted he would become this mega star that he is clearly becoming now, especially within genre fiction. My brother said he doesn't like him. I don't really have a problem. He's fine. Like, I don't love him or think he's one of the greatest actors ever or anything, but I don't have a problem with him either. He's whatever. He's there. Like, he's fine. Why am I drinking water from a jar? Do you not do this in your country? We use, or maybe this is more of a hippie Portland thing than a US thing. Yeah, we drink out of mason jars. We use mason jars as glasses. What's the big deal? Almost all of my glasses are mason jars. Oh, hey, fangirling and loving it. So excited for Mando season 3. Hi, fangirling and loving it. If I recall, you're from the Mandalorians and from the Marvel. You're from Darren's neck of the woods, right? Is that where I've seen you before? I'm so glad you could come and join me. Yeah, I'm excited for Mandalorian season 3, even though I think the first 2 seasons were overrated, because I love the Mandalorian story, the Mandalorian lore of the Mandalorian people, which was one of my big problems with the first 2 seasons of The Mandalorian, is they barely touched on that. And for a show called The Mandalorian, they barely even touched on Mandalorian culture. They did a little bit with the Darksaber in season 2, but not nearly enough. And season 3 is going to focus on it by all appearances. And that gets me pumped. That I do look forward to. Yes, you've made my day by remembering me from there. Well, I'm glad I made your day. Yeah. I mean, you've got to be fair. You've got a very memorable username. So, because I also engage in fangirling and loving it as well. I do that a lot myself, so I can relate to you there. Let's see. We've covered Antman and the Wasp Quantmania. I already covered that. Fangirling and loving it. I give it a 7 out of 10, in case you missed that part. Covered Picard Season 3. We've covered The Last of Us. And talk a little bit about Mandalorian Season 3. So by the time I come back again and do another live chat, Mandalorian Season 3 will be on. And I'm not doing weekly reviews. Darren has not invited me to the Mandalorians. I think that's just, I think the Mandalorians is very staunchly Rob and Dawn, so which is fine. It's a boys' club. They let them have their fun. It's fine. I usually do the Marvel stuff with Darren, but that's fine. But I'm not. I don't do my own weekly reviews. I'll probably do like a season-long review. I might even do a mid-season review for the Mandalorian if I have something to say. Otherwise, I'll just do a season-long review. But I am sure that next month, when I come back and do my live chat, I will. I'll talk about how it's going, how I like it so far. Haven't decided yet which weekend in March I will be doing this. I'll have to let you guys know that. Likely the 11th or the 18th. But I'll let you guys know. But either way, The Mandalorian will have been on for at least 2 or 3 weeks. Excuse me. I did like your announcement video when you mentioned the Bears. That was one of my ideas. Was it? Yeah. That's the one random conversation that always sticks out in my head. We've had a lot of random conversations on these live chats, but for whatever reason, I just remember talking about the Bears. Can't wait to see what you think of it. I'm also looking forward to a closer look at Mandalorian history and culture. Yeah, I want to see that. I want to see Din Djarin get a closer look on that. I want to see Din Djarin finally learn that his little cult is not representative of the Mandalorian people as a whole, and there are so many different aspects to the Mandalorian people that he has no idea about. And I also want to see Bo-Katan, I think, anyways, start to maybe learn to accept this cult a little bit more. That's what I predict, anyway. That we're going to start. Actually, I think I might have heard either speculation or maybe even a spoiler that was going to happen. So I don't think I came up with that idea on my own. But I do want to see that. I do want to see the characters kind of learning more about other aspects of the Mandalorian culture, and kind of bringing and tying it all together. Because this whole thing with, what do they call it? I always want to say the Children of the Light, but that's Wheel of Time. What are they called? The Children of something? Anyways, like this whole thing about them not taking their helmets off, that's, as far as I can recall, is invented for the Mandalorian show. I don't ever remember that being mentioned in the Clone Wars or Rebels. So I want to see it all tied together and brought together, and the characters all learning about different aspects of the Mandalorian culture, and the audience getting to learn about how they all connect. That's fascinating to me. I am really looking forward to it. But yeah, the Bears, Manny. I probably told the story before, but I'm sure when we talked about the Bears before, and this is when I'm going to do my terrible British accent that Brandon can mock me for. But like, back in the days, like before I transitioned, I was with my wife at the time. Actually, I think she was still my girlfriend at the time, in Scotland, doing the West Highland Way, like a 95-mile trek through the Highlands of Scotland and the Highlands, as we say in the US. But I didn't see the Highlander there, though. But we were on a train coming back because we've hiked the 95 miles, and then we were on a train coming back, and we ran into this British couple that we had seen toward the end of our hike, they were going the reverse direction. We went from south to north. They were going from north to south, but they were ill prepared for any kind of backpacking, and they got rained on, and they didn't have any. They didn't know how to deal with it, so they gave up and had gotten on the train and were heading back down to Edinburgh, and so we were on the train with them. Actually, probably the Glasgow, because I think we switched. We were going to Edinburgh, but anyways, we're into this British couple, and I was telling them about backpacking in the U.S. And I was telling them about how there are bears, everywhere on the trails. And they're, when you go in the backcountry, not on the trails, you never see them on the trails, but in the backcountry, there are bears there. And she's like, "Oh, you must be very brave." And I'm sorry, but that's really funny to me, because bears are the most, at least the black bears that live in the part of the country that I live in, are the most docile creatures. They're more scared of you than you are of them. The only reason why you might need to fear them is if there's a cub. They can be very protective of their cubs. If they feel that you are a threat to your cubs, then they could be dangerous, but that is just like so unlikely to happen. Now, there are grizzlies. Grizzlies are more, dangerous. I believe the grizzlies are probably in California. Definitely in, Yellowstone Park has grizzlies. Alaska, there's a lot of grizzlies. Those are kind of the bears that you see in the movies. They're going, "Arr." But brown bears, yeah, and they're afraid of people, so you rarely see them. Rarely see brown bears. Black bears too. And so when she was like, "You're very brave," I just kind of found that funny, because I'm not, and bears are like nothing to worry about at all. They steal your picnic basket, Maddie, is what I believe you meant to say. They steal your picnic basket. Hey, boo-boo, I'm gonna steal your picnic basket. Terrible Yogi the Bear impression. Terrible. To be fair, I haven't watched Yogi the Bear in a long time. I'm Welsh, and the worst we have here are foxes. Yeah, that was the strange thing about hiking in Scotland, is that there's no fucking wildlife. We saw either were wild goats, and a lot of the hiking trails kind of go through farmland, so there were like horses sometimes and sheep. There were a lot of fucking sheep, but like wild animals. So in the States, you are required to put your food, hang your food up. So we usually bring, put it in a sleeping bag, or, one of our bags or something. You put all your fruit in, you get some rope, you tie it up to a tree, you hang it up to a tree, and you lift it up so that it is high up. So the wild animals don't get into it. I mean, mainly for bears, but it's also for any wildlife. And in Scotland, it was totally okay to just have your food in your tent with you, and that just felt wrong. I was like, I can't believe this is wrong. I can't have my food in my tent with me. Everything feels wrong about this, but there's really no reason why you can't. In Scotland, I mean, they don't even have fucking squirrels there. Like, I don't know. It was weird. It was really weird. And I don't, at least in Scotland on the West Highland Way, I don't even think that they had foxes. Not that I knew of. But God, the fucking midges though. Midges were these like little teeny tiny bugs that you can't see that swarmed around you and bit the fuck out of you. They're like even worse than the American mosquito. That was the worst part. They were only on parts of the trail, but God, they were terrible. Yeah, Maddie says wolves, another interesting wildlife, got shot centuries ago. There's odd hedgehog, and that's about it. Here we go. We can just start talking about bears again and wildlife. I don't know why that's so fun to talk to you guys about. You guys got wildlife in Australia. Oh, that's what Brandon was doing. He was speaking Welsh. I was like, what does that mean? What is he doing? Cool. Well, I learned something about you, fangirling and loving it. I did not know you were Welsh. In fact, I don't think I have ever met a Welsh person before that I can recall. Maybe I did when I was in Scotland, but I don't remember. Mostly I just remember meeting Scottish and British people. And French people. There was a shit ton of French people on the trail we were hiking. Like probably more French people than Scottish people. Like very few other Americans, but a shit ton of French people. Brandon, I'm learning something about you too. I didn't know you were of Welsh descent. Yeah. You know, here in the United States, we could, you know, it's very easy to forget that Wales or the Welsh people even exist because it's just nobody ever talks about it here. So this is very cool. So it's been an hour. I should talk about what I've been writing. So I know that last month, Brandon and Liz were hoping that I was going to announce that I am coming out with a sequel to my book that I have self-published, you know, Daughter of the Sun, self-published in 2018. I had completed a draft, or I'd been not completed, but I completed the first draft of the second book a long time ago, but I've been doing a lot of revisions on it, having other people read over it. In fact, one of my longtime subscribers, Brenton Berg, was one of the people who read over it. And I don't know, at a certain point, I just stopped. I just stopped writing it. I just stopped revising it. I gave up on it. And I'm now starting, and it was about 3 years. It's been about 3 years since I've really put any effort into it. And I'm realizing now it's because I just lost interest in it. It's a sequel to a book that I wrote before I transitioned. And I'm no longer interested in telling that story. But then I became stuck in my writing because while I lost interest in the story, I felt like I had to finish it because I had set out to do a trilogy and I must finish this trilogy. I'm a completionist that way. Like I can't start something and not finish it. So I felt guilty about not finishing it, and I felt guilty of trying to write something else. So I couldn't write or revise the second book anymore, and I couldn't write something that wasn't that trilogy because I felt bad, like I'm abandoning that trilogy. So I was just stuck. I was just stuck, and I couldn't write. Then in a couple weeks ago, like 3 weeks ago now, probably, a friend of mine, like we were gonna hang out, you know, we're like, oh, let's go to the bar, whatever. And she was like, you know, actually, could have been the same, might have been the same day as my last live stream, actually, because it was just after Sawyer died, my dog. And no, it was probably the week after, actually. It was the week after that. Anyways, we're gonna hang out, and she's like, she texts me and was like, "Hey, why don't we make collages?" I was like, "Okay, that is not something I've ever done, just hanging out with people, but sure, why the fuck not?" So she got these collage packets from this art store, and so it was like a recyclable art store, like used art store. People donate things to it, and someone had made these like collage packets, and the one that I had gotten was mostly like cards, greeting cards, anniversary cards mostly. In fact, my friend and I joked that somebody got a divorce and donated all their anniversary cards to this collage packet. It also had like random wallpaper samples and just random ass things. Like there was a Spider-Man cartoon in there, and just and pictures from magazines. There was like a lot of animals, a lot of random ass shit. And plus my friend had one Vogue magazine. So I cut out these 3 women from the Vogue magazine, and I took all of these parts of the greeting cards and this random shit, and I just put it together without even thinking about what I'm doing, like just completely, you know, drinking some beer, eating some pizza, just not even like doing anything consciously, but I put together this collage. I got it right here. I don't know if you can be able to see it. I don't know how well you can see it with the stupid green screen. You can't really. Well, never mind. I could turn the green screen off and show it to you, but I don't think I'm going to. Maybe I'll show it another time. But I picked this collage, and it was just so random, just shit everywhere. And so my friend and I started like talking about what's the story behind this. I was like, what does it all mean? How does it all relate? So eventually I just started focusing in on the 3 women from the Vogue magazine and started coming up with backstories for each of these 3 women. I decided that one of them is trans, so I got to tell the trans story. But they all have their own stories, but eventually they all do come together and have a positive impact on each other's lives. And they're all, so I'm straying away from fantasy. I'm not doing fantasy or sci-fi or anything fantastical. I don't know if I want to post it on Facebook, Brandon. If you want to see it, I can privately send you a picture, because I don't want to, like, I'm not ready to announce to the world what I'm doing other than, you know, this. But I mean, like, my friends and family, I guess, is what I more mean. Yeah, so I am writing the story that's going to be 3 separate stories of these 3 women, but the 3 women are going to meet each other, and all the stories are going to intersect, and you're going to get different parts of the story and different perspectives. I'm hoping I can make it 1 book. I'm worried it's going to be too long, though. I'm going to have to separate it into 3 books in order to get it published. But yeah, okay, I'll do that, Brandon. Yeah, so now I'm just writing, and I just haven't written like this in a long time, and it's just. In fact, I was kind of, a little bit thrown off today. I was all morning today, and the writing was flowing out of me, and I didn't even eat breakfast till like 2:30 in the afternoon. I mean, it wasn't really breakfast anymore, but it was breakfast food because I was planning on eating it in the morning, but I didn't because I was writing, and finally I was like, oh, I gotta fucking, do this live stream at 4:00. So I gotta start, getting ready for it. So I had to force myself to stop writing. But probably as soon as it's done, I'll probably go back and write, because it's flowing out of me right now. So it's really awesome. So therefore, I'm sad to say that Daughter of the Sun Part 2 is never going to happen. I've lost interest in it. You can never say never. Maybe one day in the future, I will regain an interest in it and be able to adapt it for my present day life. But right now, it's not the story I'm interested in telling. I'm interested in telling the story about 3 girls who connect and support each other and lift each other up, and with one of them being a trans girl. So when I tell her story, I'm very much going to be telling my story, but I'm also going to be telling my story through the other 2 characters too, who are cis girls, and all 3 of them are on the LGBTQ spectrum somewhere. One of them is bisexual, one of them is trans, and one of them is gay. And they're all, and this is where my other experience comes in. They're all going to be following this jam band, this fictional all-female jam band that I wish actually existed, but there is no all-female jam band. Jam bands are a man's game. But so I invented this fictional all-female jam band that is inspired by fish, but it's not fish. In fact, most of the characters in this book don't actually like fish. They just like this female jam band. And they all kind of, they all have their struggles, and they all connect, and they all lift each other up. And it's going to be separated into 3 parts, 1 for each character, and the 3 parts that will intersect. And I'm hoping that I'm able to make it so that I can fit it all into 1 book, because generally speaking, 80 to 90,000 words is the target area for the number of words that you want to have to submit it to a literary agent, who will then pitch your book to a publisher. Because I do want to try to get this one traditionally published, not just self-published, if possible. I have read in some places you could probably get away with is up to 110,000 words. Maybe, but that's pushing it. Dawn of the Sun was 175,000 words. So one of the reasons I had a hard time selling it to literary agents, among other reasons, I'm sure. So this one, I don't know how much of a market there is for LGBTQ chick lit about people following a jam band around, but I don't know. Probably more so than there. Like, I don't know. I think it's really hard to sell a fantasy novel, especially one that is so long. Let's see. Yeah, Ursula Le Guin said Tiana was the last book of Earthseed. Oh, I see what you're saying. She said that was the last book, but it wasn't. Yeah. Yeah, they said there was only that The Last Crusade was the last Indiana Jones movie, and the fucking fifth one is coming out. Like, God. Ugh. I saw the trailer for it. Like, I just, please, for the love of God, just stop. Just stop. Oh my God. Although, in that case, it's more about a money grab. With Ursula K. Le Guin, it was more about, her creative juices came back toward that story again. Like, she was able to tell that story again. And, another example is Patrick Stewart said he was never going to play Jean-Luc Picard again. But then I don't think he did it for a money grab. I think he's totally, he's set. He's fine. He doesn't strike me as a money grubbing person. But creatively, he felt that it was okay to bring the character back. And he was ready to bring the character back. So, yeah, you can never say never. I could one day, decide I'm ready to bring Daughter of the Sun back and probably make it better than I would have made it then, because hopefully I will have had more writing experience by then. But yeah, Harrison Ford must be in his 70s. I think he might even be 80. I think he's 80. I'm gonna Google this right now. Harrison Ford age. Let's see, Harrison Ford, 80 years old. Let's see, his birthday, July 13th, 1942. So he turns 81 in July. Yeah, I mean, it's one thing to have a 90-year-old Patrick Stewart running around being Captain Picard, but an 80-year-old Harrison Ford doing Indiana Jones. There's no more story left to tell. Just stop it. Stop it. There was no story left to tell when they did the Crystal Skull. And there certainly isn't any more story now. Well, I'm really going on a tangent. I was talking about my book and somehow I went off talking about fucking Indiana Jones. Just stop it. Stop! I'm sure I'll see it eventually. I'm not going to run out to the theater to go see it, that's for sure. But, probably. I saw the Crystal Skull like a year or two after it came out on DVD. And it'll probably be something like that. If it comes to like HBO Max or whatever, if it comes to one of the streaming services that I already have, I probably will watch it, but not before then. It's got another couple of Indiana Jones and Blade Runners in him. Failing that, green screen Tig Notara in that'll work. Wait, what do you mean green screen Tig Notara? What is she in Indiana Jones? I'm confused. I know I'm exaggerating. He's not in his 90s. He's around the same age as Harrison Ford, but Patrick Stewart. I mean, Captain Picard was a little bit less of an action hero than Indiana Jones, to say the least. So it's a little different. Let's see if there are any comments I missed. Oh, Fangirl Loving It said, I like the sound of it already. Oh, thank you, Fangirl Loving It. Please read it when it's published. I will be looking for beta readers for it once I finish it or finish a draft of it. I think I'm going to be primarily poking at other women and LGBTQ folk because that's the target audience largely. But yeah, anyone who wants to, I'll take beta readers, but I will make that announcement way in the future when I get to that point. I actually just today is when I started writing the actual draft of the book. The last couple of weeks I've been working exclusively on outlines. But I'm actually writing the actual draft of the book. And as I go through each character story, because there's going to be 3 of them, I will probably do more outlining too. Let's see. The green screen Tig Notaro into that terrible Army of the Dead movie. She was the best thing in it. Oh, is that the one where the Army of the Dead? Is that the zombie movie she was in? I only remember from the pitch meeting. I remember. I remember the pitch meeting for that movie, that there was some zombie movie that Tig Notaro was in. I don't know if that's what you're talking about, but the pitch meeting was hilarious. I never saw the movie, but the pitch meeting was funny. It was like, oh, it's like Chekhov's gun. You introduce a gun in the first scene, and wait, what? What happens after that? You introduce a gun in the first scene, and I actually saw, on my Xfinity cable thing, not cable, I don't have cable, but like all my streaming services are on it or whatever. Like for the screensaver, it always has advertisements for things that come on the screen, and they had this thing with Tig Notaro in it on Netflix. And I'm tempted to watch it just because Tig Notaro is in it because I love her, but I don't know what the fuck it is. I actually got rid of my Netflix. I'll eventually get it back again. But I realized I was paying $10 for nothing because I was never watching it. But things are coming on Netflix that I'm mildly interested in, so eventually I'll restart my service. I just need a break from it. But anyways, yeah, Tig Notaro is on. I don't know if it's a show or a movie, but she's on something on Netflix because I saw the advertisement on it on my screensaver. Fangirl Living It. My brother is Gareth Evan Howells. I thought about naming myself. Well, if you don't know how to pronounce it, I'm not going to try to pronounce it either. One name or the other, but I'm not sure how to pronounce either. Brandon, that's so cool. I didn't know any of this either. I know you're talking to Fangirl Loving It, and she obviously has more of a connection to that than I do, but I didn't know either of you had any kind of Welsh anything in you. I use my brother's Netflix account. Supposedly they're supposed to lock down on that soon, but I don't know. 1 hour, 18 minutes, and 57 seconds is how long I've been sitting here blabbing my mouth while I drink wine. Methinks we're going to be wrapping this up pretty soon. I'll give you guys one last chance to get me off on tangents before I do that, though. Only in Latin America at this stage. Yeah, but I think supposedly they're going to start cracking down. I don't know. Who cares? I don't fucking know. I always just had my own Netflix account anyways. Actually, originally I had one from my ex-wife's cousin, but I was, when we got the divorce, like I took myself off of that account because, I'm not going to fucking leech off of something having to do with her family. Like, you know, I don't mean to brag, but I think a lesser person would have just kept leeching off of it. But I was like, no, no, no. I'm not in that family anymore. I'm not going to use her account. I'll just get my own. I can afford it, whatever. um, but mostly I've just used my own account. Because I'm an independent woman, god damn it. I have my own Netflix account. I'm kidding. Lots of people have other people's Netflix account. It doesn't matter. Anyways, Brandon says I'll think of a tangent 5 minutes after the stream ends. Yeah, I'm sure. So will I, actually. I'll be like, fuck, I wanted to talk about this other thing. But whatever. I know the main things I wanted to make sure I got to were Antman and the Wasp, Picard, Last of Us, and my book. My writing, actually. I'll have a book. And I got to all of those. So I feel like I'm pretty good. And we even got to more stuff in there. We revisited the Bears conversation. We talked about Welsh descent. We talked about the Mandolorian. So it's a pretty good live stream, if I do say so myself. All right, so excuse me, I'm burping a little bit. All the wine. Let me drink some water from my jar. The book needs a bear reference or two. I don't think there's going to be bear references, but if you see the collage I did, there's a silly little beaver character, and the beaver does make it into the story. It's going to be a cartoon character, hallucination / dream that one of the characters has. Anyway, all right. Take a bow or a curtsy. Oh no, that's way too sophisticated for me. Drinking wine is about as sophisticated as I get, even though it's like cheap ass fucking red blend wine from fucking Costco. But this is as sophisticated as I get. Okay, everyone. So happy to have you, Brandon, Maddie, Norman, with a special guest appearance from Fangirlin' and Loving It. So happy to have you make that crossover. It's more like a crossover appearance. It's a crossover between this channel and these reviews. Fangirls and Loving It, making a cameo crossover appearance. And it is so good to see you. Manny says, I hope next time I see you, we all are buzzing about Picard season 3 and not bummed out. I hope so too. Or at least somewhere in between there. I don't have to be buzzing, just not, bummed out or pissed off. All right. It's been a pleasure. Maddie, Brandon, Norman, fangirling and loving it. I love you all. Thank you so much for joining me. Thank you for all of you who watched me in the archives. And I will see you on the live stream next month sometime. Look out for that announcement. And also, I will see you for my Picard Season 3, Episode 2 review next Thursday. All right, everybody. Cheers.